Hello, this is Mr. Zanolito. I'm here doing topic 3C specifically. Topic 3 is segments and their lengths. Topic 3C, create an algebraic equation using the definition of midpoint and solve for missing lengths is how it's described. And most specifically, we're talking about midpoint. So if we're going to talk about midpoint, I would assume we should know the definition of midpoint. So that's where we start. Definition of midpoint. And definition of midpoint is the exact middle point that splits a segment into two congruent segments. And if we look at something that is like that, we would have, if we're going to draw it, and I'm very big on drawing whatever we have, so I would definitely draw this. And to get what we have here, that's my segment. The midpoint would be roughly there. And to indicate that we actually are trying to indicate the exact midpoint, or the exact, that point exactly, you're going to mark it with tick marks. The same number, as long as you have the same number of tick marks, that indicates that they are congruent. So same number of tick marks represents same segment length. So with respect to that, let's go ahead and go down and do this example I have listed down here. That's the definition of midpoint, the exact middle point that splits the segment with two congruent segments. So when we have something like this, we're being told that G is a midpoint. And again, without knowing this, we wouldn't be able to solve this problem. We know that that's a midpoint. So I'm going to go ahead and draw it as such. I'm going to say this is M and this is N. And G is the midpoint. Well, if G is the midpoint, then I know this is congruent to this. So I mark it with the same number of tick marks. That's congruent to that. Now, from here, GM was 3x plus 6. And GN is 4x minus 9. Note, I don't know how long MN is. Eventually I can find it, or I can find the different lengths if I go ahead and I can solve for x. And in fact, I can solve for x. Since that's a midpoint, I go ahead. We need to make sure we realize that both halves are the same length. And in that case, now we can go ahead and start calculating that. We can say that we can set that equal 3x plus 6 equals 4x minus 9. And if that's true, just a second, let me do something real quick here. Let's see what's going on here. There's all the information we had up top. Now, if I set those equal to each other, now I can go ahead and use algebra to solve that. I can go ahead and say that subtract 3x from both sides, get the x's together. 6 equals x minus 9. Add 9, x equals 15. So if x equals 15, sometimes they'll be asking that and that'll be all they want. But in this case, note, they want mn. Well, if they want mn, that's this whole thing. Let's find each of these. mg is going to equal 3 times 15 plus 6. That's 45 plus 6 is 51. And if I know that, I also know that gn is 51. Or if I want to check my math, make sure that I did really keep those equal, I can go ahead and plug that in. Gn equals 4 times 15 minus 9. That's 60 minus 9. Sure enough, that's 51. So both of these are 51. Therefore, mn is going to be the sum of those two. We're going back to the segment addition postulate with regards to that. And we end up with 51 plus 51 equals 102. So mn is equal to 102. That's my answer. And that's pretty much it for midpoint formula. Just make sure you realize that, not midpoint formula, the midpoint, definition of midpoint. Using the definition of midpoint, we can set these two equal to each other, solve for x, plug it back in, and find the actual lengths. And that's about all I have for 3C. Thank you.